LifeVantage doesn't formulate to be just have the best ingredients. They formulate with a purpose to activate the body's processes so that the body can do what it's designed to do. God's pharmacy in a bottle. But it's tested based upon looking at specific genes that perform specific functions. We all have them. A lot of us are underperforming that have a specific function. What Axial is the brain's ability to learn. So when people say, well, Axial help this or will Protandim help this? Well, if they're human, then these processes, if we can improve them, that person can have improvement in their functionality. For this little guy, it changed my world as far as like what I thought was possible.
Let's get to this special guest, guys. Tonight we've got Dr. Brett Brimhall with us. I can see him on the screen. I am grateful that he was available for us tonight. He's highly requested, so I respect his time greatly. And I met Dr. Brett through this business. If you know Brett, you'll know how humble of a person he is, extremely humble person. And, you know, that to me is more important than a lot of other things when it comes to the characteristics. And unless you ask him, you wouldn't know what his background is and what they've been able to accomplish. But the reason I wanted him on here tonight is twofold. One, him and his father, but his father's not here right now. He is, right? Brett comes from a long history of the wellness industry. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about this tonight. But they've developed a lot of products for themselves and for other people that have come to them to develop products. Companies come to them to develop products. Dr. Brett is a chiropractor out in Arizona and has built an incredible business here at LifeVantage. And I'm going to let him tell the story, but it's an honor to have him here with us tonight. So welcome to the huddle, Dr. Brett.
This is fun. Appreciate you guys inviting me in. Yeah, I've already picked something up from you. I love the thought of move families forward. Like, what a beautiful vision that you're casting, and just kind of summarize really LifeVantage and what we do is to move family forward, and including my own. I never thought that this would be something I would do as a main process of what I do in my day. So appreciate you letting me be a part of that. That's going to be amazing. I'm gonna borrow that or plagiarize that.
Yeah, do it.
My
What do
dad
they call
and I
it?
say,
Rip off and repeat, right?
yeah, we tell people it's not plagiarism, it's just research and development. So
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, I'm glad you're here with us tonight. Give everybody a little bit of a background. I told them a little bit, but I'm sure I left a ton out of there. What led you down into, you know, the path you went as a chiropractor? Give us a little bit of background of, you know, what that looked like.
yeah, I'll try to summarize this for you guys. And really, it's you end up where you are based upon the choices you make. And that's exactly why I'm at LifeVantage. Never thought this would be where I was. So from the time that I was born 1974. My dad graduated chiropractic school in 1971. All I knew was natural medicine. I didn't even know what sugar was or sugar bowls. That's just the world I grew up in. We grew up in a tiny little town in northern Arizona, and maybe 5,000 people if you count maybe chickens. And my dad had this vision because he was injured and he got where he couldn't walk. And so a chiropractor got him back walking again. And he went to a chiropractor, because I'm actually carrying to a chiropractor's office, and the guy got him back walking again. It's like, you're going to be a chiropractor, not a dentist, because that was the road he was on, because you owe to the world what was done for you. That was the philosophy I grew up under. And so my dad was studying everything he possibly could. So he went to chiropractic school, went back, you know, and started studying nutrition. Started studying emotional work, got other bachelor's degrees in both of those because he had people he couldn't help. And that's really what drove me to LifeVantage, is that we kept learning. So really since 1995, when I came home from a church mission for 2 years, I knew I loved to teach people and I knew I loved helping people. I knew those two things for sure. Didn't really know what chiropractic, you know, money-wise made. I just knew that I could talk about God. I knew I could talk about health, and I knew I could help people heal. in that profession. And so I went down that road. And so from 95 until present, I've been teaching other physicians that basically around the world on a process we call the 6 steps of wellness. A big part of that is my dad became a nutritional formulator. So he's formulated over 200 natural products that were sold strictly to healthcare channels. So I didn't typically look for products. We would create them because we had the knowledge, the background, and the companies that wanted us to do that. When I was introduced to LifeVantage, I was taking care of a little boy who was diagnosed at 2 with autism. And how many of you, by show of hands, have worked with anybody you know or love that has struggled with autism or something like that? And I'd worked with that a lot. I'd been in practice at that time, probably close to 15 years almost. And I was used to the process, which is eliminate all the bad stuff, and then try to get the nutrients into them they needed to get their body to unfold. And I remember doing that with this little guy. And keep in mind, when you think of autism, there's a big spectrum, but for him, struggle with learning, struggle with behavior, um, 35 hours of therapy a week, occupational therapy, speech therapy, right? And most people couldn't have the money or the time to do that. His mom was part of LifeVantage. She had built a business to really move her family forward because they were in a position where husband's attorney made good money, but just hated his work. She is in retail sales and phenomenal at it, but still income wasn't going to give her freedom. She had created a business with LifeVantage to where she was traveling an hour each way to come see me. On top of that, doing 35 hours of therapy a week because she had time and she had money. And when I started working with her, I just did what I did. And this little guy would make a little improvement enough that he started to realize he was different. Like, my brother's getting straight A's. I have all these extra tutors. And I remember her after working with her for close to a year. She was making a little bit of improvement. And Carrie, your mom, she okayed me sharing these stories. She came in and said, look, he's starting to notice he's different. What else can we do? Now, as the father of 4, like, that part broke my heart. So I'm like, I'm doing everything that we can, more than I do with most people, and he's struggling. And a few weeks after that, that Axio comes out. So if you're not familiar with Axio, it's basically Nerf 2 and a drink and liquid brain food. And I looked at the ingredients, and this is a word I've used multiple times. I looked at the ingredients, I looked at the bottle, I said, it doesn't look that special. So I look at Protanum Nerf 2 years ago. Someone brought it into me, said this helped me. I looked at the ingredients and it didn't look that special. I looked at Axial, it didn't look that special. I said, let's give a hyper 3-year-old, a 4-year-old their time now, an energy drink. That makes sense. I'd be very sarcastic. And Carrie, if you know Carrie, she can banter pretty good. And we kind of had that relationship at that time. And I said, well, I don't think it'll hurt it. And so she gave it to him, thank goodness. And 2 weeks later, he comes in, actually 10 days, he comes into me, my office, and he sat still for the first time. Sat still, and he had a conversation with me. It was on point. It didn't make any logical sense based upon the drink. Then he went back in the back office and he started like doing all the therapy we've been asking him to do without prompting. That was the beginning for him. That's when he started getting it. It's like all of a sudden everything that we were doing connected and just kept improving and growing. And with little children, we watch that. Like, they just constantly learning. They just go to the next level, go to the next level, the next level. This little guy at that point in time, he was at the bottom of his class for the second year. Within 6 months, he was the top of his class, being used as a peer model for behavior. None of that makes sense based upon the ingredients that I saw, based upon how we formulate, because we just didn't understand how LifeVantage formulates. A little secret for you, LifeVantage doesn't formulate to be just have the best ingredients. They formulate with a purpose to activate the body's processes so that the body can do what it's designed to do. God's pharmacy in a bottle. But it's tested based upon looking at specific genes that perform specific functions. We all have them. A lot of us are underperforming that have a specific function. What Axial is the brain's ability to learn. So when people say, will Axial help this or will Protanum help this? Well, if they're human, then these processes, if we can improve them, that person can have improvement in their functionality. For this little guy, it changed my world as far as like what I thought was possible. And I found myself just trying to figure out like what happened, like why. And I found myself on an airplane to South Dakota on a week's notice, canceling patients, meeting the scientists, and really trying to wrap my head around how they formulate it differently. And as I met with different people, I realized like they're testing the actual quantity of the enzyme the body can produce, or that I could test. So we could put good formulas together based on research. We couldn't test it. So when LifeVantage brings a product to market, like they know that it does a certain thing. So I actually came back and I told my problem children, and I took my toughest patients. These are ones that many of them were my family, that I had gotten to a point doing all the things that I knew at that point in time, because it was my failures, my father's failures, that led us to develop always. And when I started watching my problem children having results, I wasn't getting to it, all the other things. I realized that LifeVantage was different. You know, it could have stopped there, because I mean, I have story after story about crazy, really cool, fascinating things. Two of my nephews both could have been considered on the spectrum. Now both serving church missions that I didn't think was in the cards for them. This is after 10 years of activation, where now they began to progress, they began to success, their confidence in drastically went up because their body became activated. And that was, again, we were doing all the right things. We were supplementing, but not activating. So LifeVantage is vastly different. And how somebody feels physically, mentally, emotionally is directly proportionate to the amount of activation they have and the amount of purpose that they live. Those two things really, really matter. So LifeVantage creates the activation in the product. And if you wrap your head around the people, then you can have a purpose. And what I love what you said is moving families forward. Now, I probably would have just become somebody really good at sharing the product had God, in my mind, probably not helped push me this direction for other reasons that I didn't know at the time. Right around that time, so this is a September of 2014 when the little guy started having the results. It was in November or October, I went out to South Dakota to meet the scientist. It was November, like late November, early December, I broke my knee playing basketball. And there'd been another time in my life where, as a clinician, if you can't see patients, you can't make money. And as a family of four, busy in church callings, when I broke my knee, I'm like, my brother's a surgeon, said you need to be off of it. So that's not an option, because you can't be off your practice for 3 months. That's not a reality. And so I just limped around on a crutch.
Not and stay in business, right?
No, not stay in business. And I just did what I had to do. But that was really an eye-opening, where Carrie Williams, now a really good friend of mine, she sat down with me and said, what do you really want with LifeVantage? I said, look, I want to be able to make impact in people's life, making money while I sleep. I've done the other, and I want to know how you did it. Like I said, if somebody that worked at Bath and Body Works, like the store manager, can create this income, where at that point in time she was being considered EC3, making really good money, which I didn't even know what that was at the time, had no idea how much money she made. But I'm like, if you can do it, like, how did you do this? We worked really closely together doing that. And because of that, I've met obviously amazing people like you, and I can see Tori on here and the others, that we can now go move a lot more families forward. But I didn't realize what would happen to myself personally as a growth factor, and the connection, the friendship that I'd have, but also the way in which our stories travels. Because there are so many, like, throw in the chat, guys, in here, if you ever recommended Axio to somebody based upon a story you heard that we did. And that's the power of network marketing to me, that's vastly different than clinicians, because you have the capacity to share so much faster and impact life so much, further, because of this industry, and it rewards you based on you sharing it. And so that's kind of a summary of some of that.
How do you, separate those things when you're trying to create great products, but then now looking at activation? Like, how much different is these products than what else that's out there?
So different in the sense of this. Understand, if you shooting for a target, you have to know what the target is. And when it comes to activation, like, people, they say the word, but don't know what that means. For instance, when in the past, when we're focused on making a product, you're saying, okay, I've got these individuals, they struggle with a particular thing. Let's just call it like, an adrenal problem. Well, then you do all the research on all these different ingredients that might be supportive to the adrenal, but we're just supporting it at a gland versus understanding, okay, every gland in your body, every cell in your body, like, what does every cell need? Because every cell, depending on where it's at, needs the same thing. So a brain cell needs glutathione, so does a kidney cell. Does that make sense? So the difference when it comes to, like, activation is like, we're not asking like, how do I help a system? I'm like, how do I help a cell function ideally? That's why all people can respond properly to like nerf 2 or nerf 1, because you're addressing the actual cellular function. And then the other part is testing it. Like we talk about mitochondrial function, like this is something that's, basically your body has mitochondria, makes energy. So if we were going to make a mitochondrial product, which my dad made several of those, you basically look at what a mitochondria needs and you try to give it what it needs so it can do its job, which is important. What if you could ask the question, how do you get the body to make more mitochondria? How do you test the production that the mitochondria has, and you target that assembly line? And then you have an ability to test it. That's what's crazy. Like to be able you have to have enough money to test the amount of the production you get. And you have to be able to have the research capacity and the knowledge to know how to test that. Like that is crazy when you really think. So this whole the gene stuff, the genome project finished in the early 2000s. Protandim was developed in 2003. There's no coincidence to that. But they weren't calling it Nerf 2 at the beginning. They were calling it Protandim.
Mm-hmm.
They later understood it activated Nerf 2 that really should be called Prothreatum because it regulates 3 different genes, 3 different like antioxidant responses. So if you could geek out with this, I'll throw you one thing that really could have blew my mind. Some of you guys probably know the name Dr. Perlmutter. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Perlmutter wrote a book called Grain Brain. Mm-hmm. So when I learned about Nerf 2, which Protandim Nerf 2, we know simple answer is that it increases your enzymes like glutathione, but what it did, it basically helps you heal 40% faster. Short answer, hey, look, guys, would you like to heal like you did when you were younger? That would be awesome. Do you know you could if your body could do what it used to do? Like that would be awesome. But when I was exposed to Nerf 2, like I understood this idea of Nerf 2, and that's why this is in like the late 2000s probably. Perlmutter was part of LifeVantage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when he left LifeVantage, he came to a company my dad and I taught for. And part of that deal was he was given a product called Nerf 2 Activator.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember learning about Nerf 2 and then later reading his book about Nerf 2 activation called Grain Brain. If you want validation this is real, and you read his book, he talks about 7 things that activate Nerf 2. 5 of them are Protandim, 2 are in his product.
Yeah.
He couldn't do the other ones because there are patents.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that product did not work well. Like I was having to double dose to get a little bit of effect. I just thought, well, maybe this pathway thing is not that big a deal. Mm-hmm. But from a clinical perspective, watching what had happened, so to short answer what you told me, asked me to answer, I don't know of any of the companies that are testing like we're testing, creating products the way we're creating them because we have very specific targets we're aiming at. Mm-hmm. We're testing those targets based upon worldwide research that we can pull together and find the best in combining them. That is not a common way of formulating because 1, it's expensive, and 2, you have to have the right people to know how to understand it and also test it. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of companies I've formulated in the past, they don't have those kind of pockets. Mm-hmm. Nor do they put the energy into that. But also I think LifeVantage is way ahead of the curve and understanding the process of creating it. Mm-hmm. That's super unique. And so all the products my dad's formulated, none of them, 200 of them, none of them have been published on PubMed. 0.
A lot of people would look at a doctor, and you mentioned it a little bit about your injury with practicing, but why would someone successful like you in your practice do this? Was it strictly because you're like, hey, I need to have another stream of income, and now that you've created it, maybe is there another reason why you did this? And if not, talk a little bit about what it means to have that stream of income alongside. What's that mean for you and your family?
Yeah, I have to admit I was slow on this. So if you take from me, study the industry and what's possible from it, I was really slow to do that because never, being a network marketer was not something I'd ever considered or even studied in school. So a couple reasons. One, for me, when I saw what the products did, I knew I was going to share it. Like I just that was like I had to, but it made the money I made from selling a bottle of Protandim made no sense, but no sense from a business perspective. Just so you know, like
No
it was
markup.
2 to 9%, right? That's rough. Okay, so it didn't make sense. So I had to have somebody paint a vision for me what was possible, and that was Carrie. And I realized I knew she had the time, and I knew she had money whether she worked or not. And that to me was important because there have been several times in my life where I wish I had more time and I wasn't having to worry about money. As a father, my greatest joy and struggle is providing for my family,
Mhm.
and that pressure never leaves
Mhm.
ever. And so when I went on vacation, it was really hard for me to go on vacation completely mentally because as a entrepreneur, I knew that my business was not doing the same volume I would do if I was there,
Mhm.
and that was hard. And then in 2009 to 10, when the economy tanked, I paid my employees for like 6 months and I didn't get a paycheck. And so my wife and I built a home. We actually sold that home in 2010 because we knew we had to do something different if we were going to get to where we wanted to be long term. And that for me, as a guy, would, and I'm sure for anybody, was horrible. That conversation. So when I broke my knee, all that flashed back.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was possible, but I do know now what it feels like when I know that money's coming in every month because I created a machine that I didn't know was possible. And when COVID happened, I was in France with my family. And I remember that feeling of it happening. And yeah, it was a weird place to be, but I told my wife, we're fine. If it takes us a month to get back, 2 months to get back, 3 months to get back, we're okay because of LifeVantage and what we had created with network marketing. Now it took us, a few years to create that, but didn't have that after 15 years of practice.
Yeah.
And so I tell my children, all of them, I said, look, guys, I don't care what you do in life as far as business, but please find something that you love that hopefully has a positive impact, but it helps you make money while you sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a dad, I can tell you what that feels like, and that sense of like, it's going to be okay no matter what happens, whether, hey, I need to take a break because I've got some family stuff to deal with, or I have a little extra money where I can give back a little more. Just having that time and that sense of freedom in my head, and that's beside all the many people that you get to rub arms with and lock arms with, and have that same vision of like, who do you meet that says, look, our vision is to move family forward? I mean, come on, like that's what we get to do, but we get to do it by changing people's health. That's what's possible. And as a professional, what I watch with professionals, something has to hit them pretty hard, or they have to watch somebody long enough to where they have FOMO. I had my older brother, who's an orthopedic surgeon, finally after years, say, look, I want to look at that. And I had a dentist friend of mine that's watched me for over 10 years. He called me up and said, like, I think I want to do that with you. I'm like, well, we'll do what? Because he's watched me be really consistent. He's watched the things that we've done, the vacations we took, the consistency of what we've had. And I never flaunt it. That's not my jam. But I show up, I do my things, and he watched me do that. The product will never change, in my opinion, as far as the product we have of the health people's lives. If they activate, they will be better than they currently are. The other product that people watch, in my opinion, is how we do the business.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're watching you as they like, what are you doing? And as they've watched me, and I've watched my professional friends now coming to me a little more like, hey, I want to do that with you. What's it going to take? I say, I'm saying it's not, it's going to be work. But if you do the work the right way, and I've had phenomenal mentors, obviously Kerry Williams, Kerry Dickey, and Stu Brody, but many of you, like I've watched you guys, and I send your videos, Brennan, like I've watched you, I actually taught with you one time in Dallas, right? And I just have huge respect for what you guys create. And I want that for other people, but people will watch you. So you are part of that product, in my opinion, as well.